Here we are. Welcome, 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 everybody. My name is Mike DeLuca. I am the host of the Integrative Wellness and Development Podcast. Very, very excited that you're here joining us. We have folks joining us on Zoom from all over the world. We have folks that are joining us on Facebook from all over the world. Pretty excited about that as well. And I am very excited about our guest tonight and our topic. Just a little bit of background. Um, this show is not affiliated with any other group, any other organization, any company other than my company, which doesn't do anything but does this podcast. I'm retired, happily retired, and this is a gift of love to you and everybody out there who watches. I've been doing this podcast now going on 5 years, sharing some incredible information and guests. And that's what this show is all about. It's about sharing information. It's about education, information, inspiration, perspiration, every kind of Asian you can think of to encourage people to expand their paradigm of thinking, to expand the tools in their toolbox for health, wellness, well-being, personal development. And that's what it's about. Legally, I have to say we will not be making any claims about diagnosing, treating, preventing of any condition or illness. But tonight you're going to hear some incredible information about stuff that is working, stuff that is beyond drug therapy or ECT therapy. Very, very excited about this. So with that, I am going to go to a PowerPoint and tell you a little bit about our guest tonight. I think it's pretty amazing. I've known this guest now for 50 years, actually going on 51 years. That's crazy. I think that's crazy that she actually still talks to me after 51 years. Anybody talks to me after 51 years. John is nodding his head. But anyway, my guest tonight is one of the most incredible people I've met in my life, and I've met a lot of incredible people. Her name is Martha Rhodes. She is the author of this book, 3,000 Pulses Later. And this is a memoir of surviving depression without medication. I'm going to embarrass her with a little biography. Martha Rhodes spent over 25 years working as a senior level executive in several major New York advertising agencies. That all changed in 2009 when she succumbed to depression and overdosed on Xanax and alcohol in an unsuccessful attempt to end her life. Her book, 3,000 Pulses Later, a memoir of surviving depression without medication, describes her challenges with undiagnosed and untreated treatment-resistant depression and her struggle to find an alternative to antidepressants that fail to relieve her symptoms. This is where she discovered Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation, or TMS. Martha is a TMS advocate for patients who contact her from throughout the United States and from as far away as Europe, South America, Canada, the Middle East, Australia, South Africa, through her website, 3000pulseslater.com. She's on the Patient Advisory Council for Neuronetics NeuroStar Advanced TMS Therapy and the Hartford Healthcare Institute of Living Patient and Family Advisory Council. In September 2015, Martha completed a major public service video project with Emory University's Office of Technology Transfer called Put a Face on It. And we will put in the chat the link for you to go see that. She is the 2016 PM360 ELITE winner in the patient advocacy category. The ELITE stands for Exceptional Leaders, Innovators, Transformers, and Entrepreneurs, and it represents the most influential people in the healthcare industry around the world. She has represented internationally in the United Kingdom, Wales, and England, where she participated in the National Health Service's official TMS launch. Martha is a graduate of Emerson College in Boston, has done postgraduate work at Harvard University and the School of Visual Arts in New York. She is also the founder of a book. She's sort of like a book guide, if I could say that. She's the founder of Pushpin Press, and she does start to finish book planning services. Okay, with that long introduction, but important, she is also a member of my Triple B club of guests. That stands for Brilliant, Beautiful Inside and Out, and Badass. So that is my Triple B, um, group that I have as guests on my show. So with that, I'm incredibly grateful, incredibly proud to have as my guest Martha Rhodes. Now that I've thoroughly embarrassed her, Martha, welcome to our show. Please unmute yourself and let's get busy here.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, it's been an amazing 50 years.
I didn't realize it was that long, but yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. I guess we've been having fun. I don't know.
I guess we've been having fun.
I can't believe it's where does the time go? I don't know.
This tonight's a serious subject, okay? And this is something that hits home. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't experienced or hasn't had a family member experience the challenges that come with depression, because there's all kinds of depression, as we know. And I wanted to, Martha, maybe you can tell us a little bit about depression and a little bit about your experience and how this led you to TMS. If you could share a little bit about your journey.
Sure. I at the time that this all happened in 2009, and I was commuting 2.5 hours, 2:20 one way to New York City, working in advertising agencies. And I started out as just a low-level, get the coffee person, and ended up in a corner office at Ogilvy and Mather, which is one of the biggest agencies in New York. I'm not bragging. The reason I'm telling you this is because it came with a lot of stress. And when a person is living with a extended, constant exposure to stressful situations, which I was, your cortisol levels increase. And when your cortisol levels are high, it's a chemical in the body, you open the door for depression. And I was seeing a doctor for depression at one point, and was taking the morning happy pill, thinking that, it's a pill, it's a medicine, it's going to work. And yet I was waking up every morning wishing I was dead. And unfortunately, because I didn't realize the medication, I wasn't metabolizing it, my alcohol intake increased. So I created a perfect storm. Now, mind you, I had a wonderful husband, 2 great kids, great job, as I mentioned. Life was supposedly wonderful. So I basically became my own judge, jury, and executioner, because I surmised that I was the most ungrateful wretch on the planet. That's where this all took me, not realizing that, in fact, I had treatment-resistant depression. Just so you know, there are healthcare professionals that I run into. I just did last weekend.
Just so you know, there are healthcare professionals that I run into.
Am I hearing an echo?
Go ahead, you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Who do not even know that in the DSM-5, which is the Bible that the psychiatrists, doctors use to diagnose their patients, it's in there. It's called refractory depression, also known as major depressive disorder, treatment-resistant depression. And because I wasn't diagnosed, and I was taking this pill, and so this is where the tragedy, near tragedy, occurred. In the meantime, my sister, she was in a dentist's office, and she opened up Connecticut Magazine and saw an ad for treat your depression without medication. Let me just put it this way. After my suicide attempt, I was hospitalized. And at that point, I was given several medications, hoping that they would work, which they didn't, because I wasn't metabolizing them. And so when my sister found this treatment, which was only FDA cleared in 2008, by the way, and this occurred,
Wow.
my suicide attempt occurred in 2009. I started my TMS therapy in 2010. That's another long story that I won't go into, but at any rate, I was so grateful that I could have an option. ECT didn't feel like an option at the time because I had there is a lot of misunderstanding about ECT. Yes, it's a hurricane to your brain. It puts your brain in seizure, and it causes your neurons to wake up and do their job. But it requires anesthesia. You cannot drive yourself back and forth. There are several side effects with it, actually. One of them is short-term memory loss, which I did experience a little of when I had ECT. But nevertheless, with TMS, it's so easy. And we'll talk more about it. Michael, you're going to just show some slides. But I was just so grateful. I was one of the lucky ones. I had full remission. The statistics are, I think, 83% of patients will have a response. They'll feel somewhat better. 62% of patients who use TMS will have full remission. In other words, they're out of the dungeon, they're out of the cave. And I fortunately was lucky enough to have that result. So I've been using it ever since, 15 years. It's not a tool, it's not a cure for depression, it's a tool. And that is something that's really important for a patient who's going to pursue this to understand. It's not a quick fix. You go 5 days a week for 6 weeks to get 36 sessions. But at any rate, let's go back to Michael's slides, and I'll answer questions later about what it feels like and all that. Oh, here, this is good.
It's the video. Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Can you hear the video?
No.
Okay. How about we go through
Yeah.
we go through this?
This is shall I explain this, Michael?
Yeah, please.
Okay. This is there was the National Institutes of Mental Health back in 2008, I believe, did a study, a very involved study called STAR-D, all capitals, STAR asterisk D. And it was, what it proved scientifically was that, and this is what blows people's mind, you would think that if a medication doesn't work, well, let me try another one, and then I'll try another one. You would think the more you try, the greater your chances are to finding the medication that works. In fact, it's the opposite. And this chart, although it's hard to see the fine print on it, it is drastically reduced. Your chances of getting help from a medication are drastically reduced based on this study. So this is why it's so important that something like TMS exists, because there are too many people who are put on what I call the medication merry-go-round to try to pull themselves out of this debilitating illness.
This is actually what it looks like, right?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, you sit in it's like a spa chair, and the coil goes to the side of the left prefrontal cortex, is where all of the function of depression and well, several things happening there, but the therapy itself is based on a thing called Faraday's law. And that is when a magnetic pulse comes in contact with matter, a tiny spark of electricity occurs. Your neurons look like this. They're supposed to give off and pick up, give off and pick up. And they actually, your neurons have like my forearm, and the ends of the neurons look like your fist. They're supposed to give off, pick up neurotransmitters. A healthy brain, that conversation is going on all the time, and everything's hunky-dory. When the brain is depressed, with these neurons are not doing their job. They're not emitting and picking up neurotransmitters. With TMS, based on Faraday's law, the magnetic pulse penetrates the skull. It sits outside. There's no needle or anything that goes into your brain. The pulse passes through the skull and comes in contact at these targeted neurons that are all about the depression. And when it hits the matter, a little spark of electricity occurs, and they start to wake up and do their job and talk to each other. And that's basically it in a nutshell. I mean, I call that the Reader's Digest version. It's far more complicated than that if you were a doctor explaining it, I'm sure. But I have to say that it was easy and it's comfortable, and you can watch TV and you can listen to music or just relax, and it's quick. It's 20 minutes. Now it's 20 minutes. When I first started this in 2010, it was almost 45 minutes, but they've improved the technology, so it's quicker now. So it takes longer to get a mani-pedi than it does to get a treatment. I mean, you can do this on a lunch hour. It's not there's no after effect. The only side effect I have is a bad hair day, because the coil squishes your hair down, as you can see on the slide there with that gentleman in the chair. But other than that, I personally, and this is all I can do, is share my personal experience. I am not a healthcare professional, and as a patient advocate, all I can do is share my experience to try to help others with their decision and their journey using TMS. Some people say, it's amazing to me. So many people can't remember the transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS. It's a mouthful. I get it. And so it just rhymes with PMS. Just, put that in your head and you'll get the TMS part and remember it that way.
Bit about this concept of treatment-resistant depression, and can you go in a little more detail about the medication merry-go-round? Because I know there's thousands and thousands of people out there who don't realize that exists. We live in an age where pharmaceuticals are seen as the one and only answer to all the problems. And when they don't work, people lose hope, people get more depressed, and people go down a darker road. Could you talk a little bit about this merry-go-round, about why treatments like this are still not popular? They're still not known to the average person.
I'm actually quite disappointed and continually frustrated at the fact that there are healthcare professionals who don't know that it exists. I had a conversation with someone just yesterday with that, like, what is that thing? And they're fascinated about it, but it's like, well, where have I been? Well, it's been around since 2008, FDA cleared. And I think there are, well, I know with the NeuroStar, which is the system that I used, but there are several different delivery systems. There's BrainsWay, MagStim, NeuroStar, MagVenture. They all deliver, but the NeuroStar for me is the Cadillac, because it has a tracking. So when you're being treated, there's a computer that's making sure that coil is in the exact spot it's supposed to be in, and delivering the exact strength of magnetic pulse that the doctor who sets this whole thing up prescribed. But the STAR-D, I mean, it's if you Google it, STAR with an asterisk and then the letter D, STAR-D, it explains the fact that more is not better for medications. More is definitely not better. And it's we have a beeping going on here. I don't know why. Let's do this. I know that the pharmaceutical industry is doing a good job, and I'm not disparaging medication by any means. I think if they work for people, again, it's a tool. The medication is not a cure. You have to keep going back and getting your dosages adjusted or changed, or they add Abilify to it or whatever. But if it's working for a patient who's depressed, I say wonderful. But there was a census taken in 2010. I realize this is a long time ago, and I don't think there's been done one. There has been one since then that in part that gave this information. I'm going to give big numbers, just not anything too specific. 18 million people reported depression in the census. Of the 18 million people, half of them reported that they sought help. Actually, I made a mistake. It's 16 million people, not 18. 16 million people reported depression. So that leaves 8 million people who went and tried to get help with traditional therapies that were offered to them. Of that 8 million, again, this is not precise, but it'll give you the picture. 4.65 million of that 8 million did not respond to the medication. So this means that a quarter of the population of the original 16, their medical needs went unmet because their only choice they had was medication or ECT. There are other therapies. There's a whole alphabet of DBT and talk therapy and whatnot, but the biggies are the pharmaceuticals and ECT. This was at the time. So if a quarter of the population's medical needs are going unmet, the fact that TMS came around, I mean, it was in research for years and years and years, but the fact that it finally made it through the FDA, hoops, it was so timely that now there is this tool that patients can avail themselves of. What bothers me is that it's still not top of mind, because to me, TMS goes right to the source of the illness, whereas medications, you ingest them, and yes, but they affect your other organs, your digestion and your liver, and on and on, depending on the medication and depending on the person. So those internal side effects, they're brutal. I mean, for me, they were. I couldn't tolerate them. So in the meantime, I'm just grateful that my sister saw this ad for it, and that I was on the medication merry-go-round. And it's funny because when I was at the doctor, one of my side effects was anger. I was with Effexor, and so my doctor said, "Why are you so angry?" I said, "Well, because nothing's working. I'm taking my 6th medication." He goes, "Well, this is not science. This is an art." I looked at him and I said, "Doc, you are no Rembrandt. I'm sorry, but I'm miserable. I'm feeling worse than when I was, suicidal." So at any rate, I left his office, and fortunately the timing was right, and I was able to find a doctor in Hartford. My journey was literally a journey, because I had to drive from Danbury, where I live in Connecticut, where I live, over an hour and 45 minutes to the hospital, the Institute of Living, where I got my treatment. Now there are hundreds, I'm 700 or 800 practices throughout the country just with the NeuroStar. I don't know how many mag stims and braid sways there are, excuse me, but I will tell you that it's now becoming ubiquitous, which I'm grateful for. But still, there aren't doctors who think, maybe this patient has treatment-resistant depression. I've put her on 7 medications and she's not getting well. So, well, all right, let's add an Abilify. Let's add an augmented medication to one of those medications and see if that works. And it's unfortunate that that's where the thinking goes. I think those are, I hate to sound like an ageist, and I'm old myself, so here we go. I think it's the older doctors who were not trained. They were not exposed to this information. And it's going to be, for, gratefully, the younger doctors who are it's part of their curriculum, is, in their training. So.
Could we backtrack a little bit for folks to understand a little bit more about depression? Because, depression affects, every part of us, right? There's a neurological component, there is a neurochemical, there's an emotional, there's a environmental. I mean, there's all kinds of things that lead into and exasperate it, get it started, exasperate. Could you talk a little bit about what it is and then how, medication is supposed to take care of it, and if it doesn't, then how does TMS take care of it the way the medication didn't?
Well, for one thing, I call it cancer of the soul. It feels like cancer of the soul because you can't see it. If you have a broken leg or, a tumor, it's tangible. You can react to it and go to the doctor and get your leg, in a cast, or your hypertension or whatever. Diabetes, you take insulin. With depression, it's invisible and it's dangerous. And even more dangerous is the underdiagnosed and untreated treatment-resistant depression, which is when I do these presentations to large groups and small groups. I used to think I'm going to go in and I'm going to tell them all about TMS so we can spread the word and get people on the bandwagon to think about TMS as an option. I've discovered that the big message, the Uber, no pun intended, the Uber message for me is creating an awareness for treatment-resistant depression. That's the biggie. That's the issue. And then fortunately, we've got TMS and ECT, but TMS has shown up just in time so that the patients who are not getting medical care for their and also, by the way, depression, treatment resistant or otherwise, is a medical illness. It's like having your brain has diabetes, which it's the equivalent of. It's chronic. There's episodic depressions. If you lose a spouse or a child, or God forbid, those are depression producing situations. But clinical depression it's genetic, it's environmental, it's chemical, it's a variety of things, but unfortunately it's chronic. And so what's important, and this is another piece of advice I try to give to patients who ask me for advocacy, is they have to own it. The patient has to own it, that this is an illness. It's not, they're not making it up. It's not about snapping out of it or just have hope. No, it's about the fact that their brain isn't doing its job. It's an organ in the body, and it's ill. It's not working. So own it and say, okay, I have this thing. Now, what am I going to do? Well, if you were diagnosed with cancer, I have this thing. Most people, not everybody, but would say, I got to get to the doctor. I got to get, treatment for this. This is what the second step is. They have to find the tool. The patient has to own it, own the illness, find that tool that works for them. And if it's ECT or medications, great. Fortunately for me, it's TMS. And then the third thing is use the tool, commit to it, and own it. Own their illness and commit to the tool that they've discovered works for them.
Has there been any studies about the efficacy for TMS and things like PTSD.
Oh, yeah. This is the good news. I'm
Yes,
glad you asked
yes,
that
yes,
question,
yes.
because it was FDA cleared for only for depression, not even bipolar, which is mind blowing. But anyway, just depression. But now they are expanding it to, they're using it at Walter Reed for PTSD.
Yes.
They're using it for OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. And quite frankly, most times with depression, there's a comorbidity. It's a partner illness. So depression and anxiety disorder are usually partners in the crime of depression in their brain. But there are practices that are they go off label, and doctors are going off label all the time with medications, by the way. But some pet practices will go off label and apply if they have the patient anxiety severe. They'll put the coil on the right side at single hertz as opposed to left side 10 hertz pulses, and they've got good results. There's been studies, there've been clinical trials, and they're getting good results. So more power to them. It's just a matter of getting it cleared so that it's most hospitals and institutions won't go off label because of the reputation. They're worried about the institution's reputation, but private practices are definitely expanding their scope of coverage.
Speaking of coverage, you were instrumental in getting insurance companies to cover this, both the private and Medicare. Could you talk a little bit about that fight, that process, how you were actually able to climb that mountain? Because it must have been a steep mountain.
It was hard. In 2009, I had my illness, and in February. But in the fall is when I discovered TMS, and it wasn't covered. This was in Connecticut, and we had Anthem Blue Cross. And but my doctor submitted the request for pre-authorization, and of course we were denied. And so I wrote a letter, and I was denied again. At this point, when you're denied twice, if you know the law, in the state of Connecticut anyway, you're required, the insurance company is required to do what's called an independent source, IRO. And they sent my second letter was like, I was practically bleeding on the page. I was so desperate to get help. And it wasn't easy because I don't know how I did it, because I could hardly get up and brush my teeth in the morning. I mean, I was a hot mess. And yet, when I got handed this denial, it was like, wait a minute, this is not right. This is a medical, I'm physically ill. What do you mean you're not gonna, if I had diabetes, you'd be covering it. If I had hypertension, you'd be covering it. If I had cancer, you'd be covering it. What's wrong with this picture? So I fortunately had the ability, don't know how I did it. I think it's because I have enough Irish in me that I was just like, they're not saying no to me. And also the truth is, a lot of insurance companies, and they still are doing this, unfortunately, they just wait for you to give up. They just wait for you to just throw in the towel and not fight. And because when you're depressed, it is hard to fight. I don't know how I did it, but I would get behind this, get at the computer, write these letters, take it down the road to the post office, send it, to return receipt, certified mail, making sure I knew that it got there and who signed for it. And then I would come home and go to bed for 3 or 4 days, cry. It was like this, constantly waiting for the 20 days that they have to give me a response. I write about this in the book. When I finally got the approval, it makes me feel weepy now just telling you about it. I was so happy that I finally got it reversed. And mine was the first case in Connecticut to be reversed after 2 denials. And thereafter, God bless them, but the Blues, they call them the Blues, the Blue Crosses across the country led the way to start covering TMS for patients. And it's been a beautiful thing. It's been a beautiful thing. Our insurance got switched over to United Healthcare. I got denied again. I had to go through the same rigmarole, but fortunately, I had support. On one of my nieces was very helpful with that, and it's a constant battle. But I know that it works for me. I know this is a thing that this is my tool. So you can't take away my tool. I gotta have this. And again, my first. People say, well, do you have to do more than one treatment? It's not a cure. No, just when you get your prescriptions renewed or changed, you got to get them refilled and whatever. Well, TMS now is durable. I mean, the first year I only needed to do maybe 2 or 3 booster single treatments, not the whole 6 weeks, just to maintain. I call it relapse prevention. You just trying to keep me from going back down. And I mean, I know my symptoms, and this is another thing I encourage patients to be mindful of. What are your symptoms when you feel yourself starting to slip? It's like, the depression starts tapping you on the shoulder and saying, I'm back. Well, guess what? You're not. So I pick up the phone and I make an appointment and I go for relapse prevention treatments, maintenance. The Medicare hates that word, so you can't use, the insurance companies, they hate that word, even though they're doing research now and providing data that maintenance, intermittent treatment is very effective, and it keeps people out of the hospital. And so part of my argument was, okay, you don't want to cover me for maintenance, but in the meantime, and I have ended up with a relapse in the hospital, $24,000. Okay, well, that's where this will take you financially. Insurance company, are you ready to fork over several $1,000s? 24,000 is what my tab was that they had to pay for. So let's get smart about the financial piece of this. Hopefully they are. I don't know. The whole insurance situation is a tough one. It's a tough one.
Could we talk a little bit about your role as a patient advocate? Could you, clue us in a little bit about what that's like? How do you help people who are trying to first learn about this option and then navigate, the maze, the medical maze of finding treatment and getting it, paid for, and helping their families deal with it and the
Right.
whole
Well,
thing?
I will get, usually through my website, or on the back of my book is my email address, martharhodestms@gmail. So I will get, I don't make outgoing phone calls because I'm not a healthcare professional. I'm just one of them, and I don't want any liability. But if somebody wants to call me, I give them the times I'm available and lock it in so that when they call, I'm not in the middle of making dinner. Oh, I can't talk to you right now. It takes a lot for a patient to pick up the phone and reach out, and I'm appreciative of that. The message or the support that I offer, and yes, I've helped patients get through the insurance, morass, but moreover, it's patients who are feeling so low and so hopeless. And I've been there. I've been there with the hopelessness. But what I've discovered is, if you tell someone to, well, just try to have hope, and I know you're feeling badly, but you can try this TMS and just have hope. No, I think that's like saying snap out of it. I think the word has to be possibility. I encourage patients, can you hold for a little bit the possibility that this could work? And if you can hold that in your heart, in your mind, in your body, it's possible, then you're on your way. And there is the FUD factor. I call it fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I went through, and that a lot of patients do. Well, I'm going to zap my brain. Is it going to make me, it's invisible. With medication, you have the pill, you've got the water, it's right there. You're feeling it go down. Yay, it's real. I remember after I had full remission, I remember came home and I said to my husband, did I imagine this? Did it really work? Because I don't get how just this tapping on my head could take all this misery away. But I feel lighter. I feel the dark cloud is gone. I can't. I'm wondering, am I imagining that I feel better? So I mentioned it to my treater, who is the person who puts you in the chair and delivers the treatment. The doctor oversees it, but the treater is the person who's really the one you want to bring the muffin to, because she's in the morning, because he or she is doing the hard part, I think. And I asked her, I said, I said to my husband, blah, blah, blah. She said, well, I can show you. She had, every week you do mine were, they're called Hamilton Depression Rating Scales, 21 questions. Every Tuesday I answered 21 questions about everything in my life. And those answers are weighted. And there's an analog that tells you whether you're 30, which is you're the worst, you're totally depressed, like beyond help, down to 0, which means you're okay. When I started, I was 27. I actually went up to 28, 29. I felt worse before I felt better. I'll mention about that later. It's called the dip, but it doesn't happen to everybody, but it happened to me. And at the time, nobody was aware of it because I was one of the first patients to be doing this thing. But I lost my thought. Hold on. This is crazy. Oh,
You're talking a little bit about the
she
dip.
printed it out. Okay. Whew. Don't you always relieved when you come back to the square that you were in? She printed out my scores and the dates that I did these scores, and I went from 28, 29 to 0. And she said, it's there in print. And when I saw it on that piece of paper, then I thought, I didn't imagine this. This was real. This was not a dream. This is something that I did for myself and for my family. And I'm now, people need to know about this. That was when and so my talk therapist said, well, why don't you write an article for the New York Times about it? Because I'm saying people need to know about this. When I started feeling better, hey, Martha, you're looking good. What are you taking? And I would say, I'm not taking anything. I'm doing TMS. What is that? Oh, transcranial magnetic stimulation. Yeah, mouthful. Nobody can put it together. So that's when I said I have to. And also when I found out about this, there was nothing for me to read as a civilian, as a patient. If I was a brainiac doctor that understood animal modeling and all that stuff, great. But I not. So when I felt better, that was when it occurred to me, how do I reach people? How do I spread the word about this? And that was how the book got started. I certainly didn't write the book to put a new room on the house, that's for sure. But it's not a gold mine, but I think we got over 30,000 books out there at this point. I think maybe we're working on 35,000 right now. So it's working, it's doing its job, and I'm happy for that. And I'm grateful I was able to do it because, like I said, I was a shell of a woman. And the fact that I was able to fight for TMS, get it, come through the 6 weeks. And it was like I had to make it like a part-time job. When I was an art director in New York, I freelanced. And so when you freelance, you show up on time and it's a 6 or 8 week gig and you're going to get this product, done for this advertising agency. And then you're home. So I put it in context of, okay, this is my part-time job. I'm going to get up every morning. I am going to get out of bed. I am going to brush my teeth. I am going to, even though I was wearing very dark and gloomy clothes all the time, because I just felt so, I made a little lunch. I had a little cup of coffee. I had a water bottle. I packed it up and I just as if I was going to a job, and it was my job. There's nobody who could do this for me. That's something else that I try to encourage patients to understand. This is something you're doing for you and your family. Yes. And your loved ones and your friends, but this is your life. And the whole concept of the possibility and the, owning it and taking the responsibility to show up for work and get to this treatment. And it gets monotonous. It's 6 weeks, 5 days a week. It's not a quick fix. I think I got the lift. I call it the lift when I woke up one morning. It was a Saturday. And I woke up and I thought, oh, something's missing. Something's different. I went, oh, I don't have to drive to Hartford today because it was Saturday and you only do this during the week. The light in the room was clearer. The colors were brighter. And I thought, oh, wait a minute, this feeling. My symptoms were I ruminate about dead people. I have this feeling like you've got the worst job in the world and a boss from hell, and it's Sunday night and you know you got to get up on Monday. That's that feeling. And then the third symptom that I have to be mindful of is I have competing emotions of extreme agitation and short fuse and weepiness. And so when that's happening over a period of a week or 2 weeks, I know that my brain is not talking, the neurons aren't doing their job. And so I go and I get a booster stimulation, and I don't walk out of there feeling, oh, I'm fine now. It usually takes 24 to 36 hours for the treatment to kick in, and that agitation and weepiness start to disappear. So.
Oh. Wow.
Did I answer your question? Did I
You've answered that question and more questions I haven't even asked yet. But the most important questions right now are for the people who have been patiently sitting here on Zoom and on Facebook. I'd like to invite now you folks there who are joining us on Zoom first. If you have a question for Martha, you can respectfully unmute yourself and ask the question, and Martha will answer it, and we'll go through all the questions on Zoom. And then folks who are joining us right now on Facebook, if you want to put your questions in the comment section right now of Facebook, I'll be able to read them to Martha as well. And is there anybody who'd like to be the second person to ask a question? I was first, so you don't have to worry about being first anymore. I was the first one. So who would like to be second asking a question for Martha? Don't be shy.
Michael, one of the questions that I'm frequently asked is, what does it feel like? And what
Good
it feels
question.
like is, it feels like a noogie, like you got a brother that's giving you noogies on your head. It's an MRI strength pulse, so you feel it, but you get used to it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like breaking in a new pair of shoes, and you just have to keep going, and it takes about a week. And some people say it's like a woodpecker, and it goes on for 4 seconds, 4 seconds, then 20 seconds off, and then on and off, on and off. And the pulsing is going to happen because the computer gives you bling, like you've got mail, bling, and then the 10 hertz pulses happen, and then you're watching TV. I mean, it's what surprised me was how easy it is. It's uncomplicated. It's just simple Faraday's law, science doing its thing to bring your brain into a healthy place.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I think some people are having the image of Frankenstein with electrodes,
Right.
or the old shock therapy.
Oh, one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Yeah, it's
Right.
that.
Or even
By the way,
ECT.
ECT is not not the movies either. ECT is very clean. It's very, the only piece of it is that you've got to be anesthetized. You got to go under, and it's just more complicated. TMS, you drive yourself back and forth. Afterwards, there's no tummy ache. No, some people say they have a headache, but I think a lot of that is the tension that they start with because of the FUD factor. But honestly, I watch TV. I used to watch the Travel Channel. Just I was like, Calgon, take me away. Let me watch Greece and take my mind off of this misery of this depression that I'm having. But it's not complicated, and it's effective. It really is effective. Not for everybody, but like I said, 83% of patients will feel somewhat remarkably better, and 62% of patients who pursue TMS are going to they have remission. Those are the numbers that they're coming up with now, anecdotally.
I have a question, Martha.
Yeah.
You said that not all medical people know about TMS. How do you find someone that does? If you need help, how do you find a doctor that is open to this therapy?
Well, I'm going to promote Neuronetics, Neurostar, because that's the one that I used. And I know that you can go to neurostar.com and find a doctor, and you put your zip code in, and That's a good question. They'll give you a list of in your zip code area, doctors that you can call for a free consultation to see if it's something you really want to pursue. I don't know what Brainsway and MagVenture are doing in terms of find a doctor, but I do know for the neurostar.com, we should put that on there too, on the chat thing, Michael. They have a doctor locator. There's also a wonderful website called tmsyou.com that is patient-centric, that I help get it developed. And they have a patient forum where people share their experience and the tips and all that. And it's I don't know how up to date it is at this point. I haven't checked in on it for a while, but it's another resource. But I will say that neurostar.com, you can definitely, and if you have a psychiatrist, here's the other thing: if you have a therapist or a psychiatrist who doesn't know about it, raising the hand and saying, well, I heard about this thing TMS, and I'm interested in trying it. They can pursue if they see any value to it, which I hope they will, and get people off the medication merry-go-round. But and I mean, again, I'm not bad-mouthing medications. I think they are wonderful. I think they help people. So I'm not disparaging them. I just can tell you that there is a large portion of the population who they don't work for, and the side effects are too daunting.
Great. Thank you for that question. Jocelyn, welcome. And what is your question?
Okay, I have two questions. Is that approach also used in Canada? Do you know if it's used in Canada?
Yes,
It is.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Now, my second question is, what would you suggest for someone who wants transition from medication to TMS and who are not necessarily treatment resistant, but want to severe from the antidepressant? What would be a transition? Would be lowering down one and then getting on the other one?
Many
or
times that's the approach that the psychiatrist will take. They will keep the patient on the medications, assuming they're not having adverse side effects with them, but they're not getting any result. Their brain is still they're still depressed. But then they'll start lowering that dosage as the journey of the TMS experience proceeds.
Okay.
And that's what most of them are doing. I did the bad thing. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but I was so fed up when I told the doctor he wasn't a Rembrandt, that I took myself off. I stayed on one, I think it was an anticonvulsive medication. I was on 6 different medications, and I shouldn't have done that, but I stayed on one because I didn't want them to kick me out of the practice for being an uncooperative patient. But I was getting nowhere fast. So, and when I left the office that day that I made this decision, I got an appointment and saw the doctor at the TMS practice with a consultation, and she spent 45 minutes with me, explained how it all works and all that. So,
Okay.
but Greenbrook, I think if you Google TMS in Canada, or I can look for you, if I have a way of contacting you, I'd be more than happy to see if I can. Where in Canada are you?
I'm in Quebec City.
Oh, that's where we had our honeymoon. Yeah, I will look for you, and maybe Michael, can I work through you to find out what practices are in Quebec City? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I would appreciate that as an individual and also a practitioner. I think that it's a very interesting information, and I appreciate that you're I would say so open and also, hands-on with the thing, and that's what we need. We need this kind of approach,
Thank you. Well, I will tell you, at first I was not exactly proud of myself. This was very, I would say humbling. It was also humiliating that I did this horrible thing. I'm just lucky that I survived it. But I just say to people, don't mess around with this illness, because it's a slippery slope. I was to find myself in an emergency room from the suicide attempt. I woke up and I was like, what the heck happened here? But I had no idea how ill I was. I wasn't seeing a psychiatrist. I was going to a general practitioner and she wasn't trained.
Just lost your audio.
Oh, me? Is it, are you okay? Can you hear me?
Could you check your microphone?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's doing its thing, Michael.
Very good.
Anyway, I will say that I will find out about Quebec City
Alright.
for you. And if you, by the way, and I take emails and answer questions, and it's what my role is now in this world, is to do what I can. I'm not a healthcare professional. I can only share my experience, but sharing my experience, I wished I'd had someone to share their experience with me when I was at the beginning of my TMS journey.
Yeah, it takes a lot of courage as well, and wanting to serve at the same time. Deeply want to serve and be the best that you can be, and taking responsibility for that. So thank you, congratulations for having.
Well, here's here's my philosophy. Do good to feel good. When you do good for someone, you feel good. And so when I can help somebody, there's a selfish part of this, it makes me feel good. So in all honesty,
That's love. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Randy.
Well, Martha, this has been really fascinating. It's a wonderful subject. I have a question. Has TMS ever been applied to other things? Because I have tinnitus, and I'm just thinking, because it's in a neuro environment that the tinnitus is stimulated from and through, and wondering if TMS has had any. Is there any possibility that could have,
they're looking at it, Randy. They're looking at it. But I have it as well. I have a constant hissing in my ear.
Me too.
And I asked my treater. I'm in a course of TMS right now, actually, and I went to an ENT doctor. There's not really anything they can do, they say, but I know that some practices are trying to treat tinnitus or tinnitus with TMS, because you're right. It's a neurological function that is connected to the inside of the ear, the inner ear. So, but I don't have. I wish I could say, yeah, go for it.
And go where for it?
Just working on it. Pardon me?
And you say go for it. I'm just wondering, go where for it? Where would you be going? Who would you be contacting just to find out?
Well, if you wanted to pursue to try to have TMS help your tinnitus.
Well, I'm just curious if anybody has had any success with it. That's all.
It's a little mystery thing. I mean, like I said, I was just to an ENT doctor this week asking about it, and there's some theories about different vitamins and alternative things people are trying, but there's nothing definitive to say, yeah, do this and your tinnitus will go away. Unfortunately, it's maddening. I know it's maddening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. You had mentioned earlier, Martha, about bipolar. Is there research going on about bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, and any type of disorder like that, and its ability to be helped with TMS?
Schizophrenia, no. I don't see they're doing any trials with TMS with schizophrenia. Bipolar, yes, and OCD, anxiety, and PTSD, yes. Also, they're doing investigative research on pain management with TMS, because the brain is sending the pain message, to the body. So, but again, that's all. It's only been around since 2008. There was research happening 15 years before that, but it's still in its nascent stage, which again, I wish that it would have caught on faster, bigger than it has. but we just have to keep beating the drum and say, you know, this is real. This works. Not for everybody, but there's a high percentage that are getting relief from this wonderful thing that all you got to do is show up, get in the chair, and, you know, have the, I wish we could, it's unfortunate we couldn't see that video, but it's on, if it's not on my website, it's on the neurostar.com website. As a matter of fact, I encourage everyone, go to neurostar.com. There's you scroll down on the home page and there's a video that tells you how it works. And it's pretty simple. Again, it's not complicated.
Who else has a question? Anybody from Facebook have a question?
Oh, there's somebody.
Okay.
Victoria.
Victoria and Phil.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Hi. So I became familiar with this many, many years ago at the time when it wasn't even remotely covered by insurance, and it was going to be like $10,000. So I was like, well, forget that. So, and I've now spent maybe 4 months researching this, and I'm in the last stages of being approved and hoping to start maybe next month. But my question is, so in my research or my many hours spent looking into this, I live in New Hampshire, and there's a company in Cambridge, Massachusetts that offers, it's like a more intense version, maybe.
Oh, Theta Burst? You're talking about the Theta
6
Burst?
weeks, it's something like 4 weeks.
Of
Yes,
what?
and I'm wondering, and nobody in New Hampshire does that. Yeah, I think I don't know who just said that. It's called Theta Burst.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, is that just like, so speaking to the doctor that I'm now working with and the facility where I'm going to go, it sounds like you kind of work, they figure out, like you said, where it's the optimum spot, and then they,
Right. It's called, they do a brain map. They do the first session is about 45 minutes, and it's a brain mapping, and that's where they figure out what dosage, where exactly where the sweet spot is. And
so is Theta Burst, obviously it seems great because it's only 4 weeks, but has a lot of research been, obviously I can't go to that one because it's out of my network, blah, 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 you know, but have you heard anything about that? Because it's a shorter duration of treatments, but it seems like they'd have to do it a more intense. I mean, how can they?
They're getting good results with it. I don't have any specific data for you on that, but you know, when I asked about it, it's something that they're again pursuing through research so that they can get it FDA cleared and offer it as another option.
Yeah. Well, hopefully down the line, I'm going to go through the whole, you know, what you're doing.
Just so you know, it's my understanding that the insurance company will only cover a diagnosis of major depressive disorder.
Yeah.
They will not, if you submit as a bipolar or as an anxiety, even though they're treating, you know, like I said, some practices are treating the comorbidity of anxiety and depression. If your doctor puts a submission that, oh, my patient has bipolar and we want to get TMS for her, they'll forget about it.
In fact, when I did my intake, I've gone through, I don't know how many intakes now, but the woman was saying from 1 to 10, you know, how do you feel, blah, blah, blah. And she said, I said, well, some days I'm okay. I can get out of bed and I go through the day. And she said, I'm just telling you from experience, it's better to be more, if you have ups and downs, they'll rate you as having bipolar and then they won't cover it, even though I know I don't have bipolar. So I thought that was kind of interesting. He said, well, I'm just giving you a little suggestion here.
Yeah.
Not that you're
that was
lying.
good advice. That was good advice, because up and feeling okay one day and then down the next. I mean, that's me. I'm like this, or I'm down, but I'm never this and then this and then down. It's always okay and then down.
Yeah.
So
I appreciated her being honest about that, because she was saying, you know, we want to make sure you're going to be judged as being, depressed, not bipolar. So I said, yeah, it's
The
ridiculous.
practices they're getting wise to the game that they have to play to get a patient treatment. And it's unfortunate that the hoops have to be
Yeah,
jumped through, but I think they're doing the best they can at this point, and more power to them is what I say.
I appreciate that. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Once again, the website for Martha and her book, 3000pulseslater.com. It's in your chat. I will also put it up on Facebook. And then also Martha's Gmail address was Martha Rhodes, RHODES TMS@gmail.com. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's in the back of the book. Okay. If you want to email a question direct to Martha, you can do that.
I should say something else, Michael. If you go to the neurostar.com, they will give you a book. If you you say, I'm interested in this, I don't know on what page of the website, but there's a picture of the book and a way for you to fill in your name and address and all that, if you're willing to do that, and they'll send you a book that you don't have to pay for. So I would say do that. I mean, it's free, so why not? I have one more thought I wanted to share, and are we about to close, Michael? Are we running out of time?
No, we have plenty of time. Go ahead.
I always thought, you're depressed, you're crying all the time. Well, not really. Some people with depression are hyperactive. Abraham Lincoln had depression and he became president. I mean, so it's not always catatonic in bed crying all the time. It can be the opposite of that, hyperactivity, just overloading, staying so busy so you don't have to feel the pain, which it is in your, like I said, cancer of the soul. It's painful that when you're in this state, everything is so dark. I was at a Yale University in New Haven runs a neuroscience symposium rather. They were doing it every year before COVID, and I don't know if they resumed it, but I went to 2 or 3 of them. And when you sit in these symposiums, you're in the audience, and there's speakers, and there's it's at some point you can kind of glaze over, which I think that was where I was getting with this particular event. And this guy got up. He was actually I think he might have been the keynote. His name is Andrew Solomon, and he's written a book called The Noonday Demon, and he's a professor of psychiatry or psychology. He's a brilliant guy. The book is a tome. It's too long to read, but it's The Noonday Demon. And as he was addressing the whole business of depression, which he experiences and treats and does research on, in the course of his speech, he said, the opposite of depression is not happiness. And of course, I'm like, oh, really? He said, it's vitality of life. And I think, my gosh, that is wanting to be here is the opposite of depression. Being happy all the time could get pretty darn boring too, if you ask me. I mean, it kind of feels good to have a good cry every now and then. Yeah. But to understand that the opposite of depression is not happiness, is vitality of life, wanting to be here, feeling alive in your life. That's the goal of beating depression, I feel. And I wrote it down, and it's in my book. I think they put it at the end of the book. It's an important concept because going for happiness all the time is not a great idea when you think about it. And quite frankly, it's unrealistic. And so I'm okay with being okay. Just give me okay. Give me, I'm feeling okayness, and I can get through today because I'm feeling okay, and that's good enough for me. And if I happen to have a day where I'm feeling happy, wonderful. But just don't give me every morning waking up feeling ugh, and wishing I was dead every morning. That's what you need to, and that feeling like you want to be dead is not vitality of life by any.
We spoke a little bit about, that you could go to get the book at the website. But I want to just, for our viewers, our regular viewers, just here. This is something I do for our viewers, and you're all here today. So if any of you would like a copy of the book, you certainly can go to that website of Neurstar and fill out all the forms and everything. For our regular viewers, I do this every show. This book, retails for $20. The first 5 viewers who send me a receipt of a donation of a minimum of $10 to the charity of their choice, it can be any charity, they will receive a free copy of the book. I will ship it to you. And again, the website address for the book and for Martha and her work with TMS is 3000pulseslater.com. And again, if you send me a receipt of $10 donation to any charity, I will send you the book myself. So please keep that in mind. Anyone else? Anyone from Facebook? This is a chance for you folks. If not, we will. I have a couple of things I want to say, Martha. First of all, again, knowing you for 50 years, knowing the type of service-centered person that you are, knowing your heart, knowing the love that you have for people, animals, insects, and everything in between, it broke my heart to hear about how you suffered with this. But I guess knowing you for 50 years, knowing that you are a warrior, and it's not just the Irish in you, it is a part of your soul. You are a warrior. Your love, your capacity to love, to have compassion, to get up when you're knocked down and to serve others because of what you've learned and gone through is something I think that defines you. Certainly it does for me. And I think you're an example of life often finds people with that warrior spirit, that servant spirit, that courageous heart, and knocks them down because the spirit of life knows that you're going to find a way to get up and you're going to show people the way to get up. And you've done that. You've been, recognized for it, awarded for it. But beyond that, I think that defines who you are, the warrior of the spirit, the warrior of the heart, the compassionate servant, and the person that, is just not going to stop until you find the answer and help someone else, even if it's one other person, and you've helped thousands of people. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, for your warrior spirit, for your courage to do what you're doing, for how you're helping other authors and how you're helping other people find their way to find their message and bring it to the world. We love you. We care about you. You're a hero. You're certainly a hero to me, and you're a hero to many people. Yeah, and it's important you recognize the spirit of the hero, in that someone who is knocked down and has the courage to get up. The hero is not somebody who never gets knocked down. It's not somebody who's never afraid. It's the person who's just like us, who is afraid, who is scared, who has these moments, struggles, gets knocked down and gets up with a mission and gets up with their heart filled with a desire to help others. So I feel blessed to have known you for 50 years. And I feel blessed that you were willing to come on this tiny little show and be willing to share with with the folks who watch it. And
Michael, this has been my honor to be here. I want you to know how much, the feeling is mutual. Now my face is really red because I'm embarrassed, of course, but I can't thank you enough for offering me the opportunity to beat the drum, to spread the word so that we can all help find if this illness is only increasing as the world turns and burns, year after year. And so this is important, and you see that, and I want to thank you for being committed to the work that we all have to do to help each other. Thank you.
And that's really important for all of us to remember. In the end, nothing's going to come out here and save us. Nothing's going to go out here and solve our problems. If you're going to wait for the spaceship to come and take you away and solve everything, or the magic being in the sky, that's not going to happen, right? It's up to us. Number one, it's up to us to be really conscious and working hard to learn as much as we can, investigate what we can, help ourselves, and then it's really, really up to us to help each other. Now more than ever, it's important for us to help each other. And one of the ways to help each other is to listen, to be there compassionately, and to share information, right? Share this information, right? It's there on Facebook. You've got the website. You've heard Martha's story. I know you must know 100 people, right? If you really looked at it, or even 5 people, if you know 5 people whose lives and families are being impacted by depression, especially, depression that is not, that is treatment resistant, people who are struggling, just share the information. You don't have to try to cure it, but knowledge is power. And by empowering somebody else with the knowledge, even with the hope, the hope that there is something out there that could help, right? And at the very least, you're going to get information. You're going to be able to network with people who have the same struggle and have had success. There's people out there willing to help you navigate through the maze and help you, move through the other maze of getting things covered by insurance. It's up to us. It's up to us to seek out information, and it's up to us to share that with each other. That's why I do this show. I don't get paid to do this show. This show doesn't sell anything. It doesn't make any money. Certainly, Neurostar doesn't pay Martha.
No.
This wasn't a commercial for Neurostar or TMS. It's not for Martha. This is all about, I love you. I care about you. I want you to know if I find any bit of information, if I find anyone who has something to offer that can help your quality of life improve, I'm going to share it. And I'll keep doing this show till I drop, and I'll just keep finding incredible beings like Martha who are so committed, loving, and generous with their time, their heart, and their energy. I'll keep finding those people. And if you know people like that, please let me know. If you know people like that who have answers, who have solutions, who have a gift that can help people out there, let me know. I'd love to have them on this show. Okay, it's not a big show. We don't have millions of viewers, right? There'll probably be 1,000 people who will watch this, but that's going to grow. And especially if you tell other people about the show, I'd love that. And then they'll tell other people about it, and it'll spread on Facebook. So again, Martha, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Michael. Thank
Folks
you.
folks who showed up tonight, thank you for having the courage to come in, have your photo and your name, on Zoom, and the folks on Facebook who came Thank you for being here. Please share what you've learned with somebody else. Please know that you're loved, you're appreciated, and you're necessary. You are absolutely necessary. And if that's the only message you get from tonight's show, I think that it was well worth the time and the effort. So thank you all. Love you all. Thank you, Martha. Love you. Give
Thank
John
you.
a big
Love you too,
hug.
Michael.
Kids and grandkids, give them hugs. And look forward to seeing you all again next week, or some of you next week. We have some really interesting folks coming on the show over the next few months, and hope you'll enjoy it and learn from it. So with that, I'm going to bid you all a good night, a good week, a good life. And again, know that you're loved, know that you're appreciated, and know that you're important. And I look forward to serving you in our next episode. So take care, and we'll see you again soon.